Hey everyone, welcome back to another Shinobi Striker video. After 3 months, we're finally getting a new character addition into the game, and this time it's the long-awaited Momoshiki, a range type that brings some of the most interesting jutsu that we've ever seen in the game. And today, we'll review all of them and I'll let you know whether or not I think he's worth getting. With that said, let's not waste any more time and get into it. Momoshiki's first jutsu is Suyua, a charging type ninjutsu in which Momoshiki transforms into a large rock structure shaped like a monkey and uses it to rush forward. The move can be charged by holding the input button, and doing so increases both the size of the rock monkey and the damage of the lunge and the follow-up attack. When fully charged, the attack becomes wide enough to strike multiple enemies as it travels forward. During the rushing portion of the move, Momoshiki gains super armor, meaning he will not be knocked back or interrupted by most attacks while advancing. However, the jutsu can still be stopped by techniques that ignore super armor or bind the user. When using the jutsu, you basically have two different ways of dealing damage. You can either walk over enemies and stop them as you move, or just press the jutsu button again to trigger the final punch, which deals more damage but also ends the transformation immediately. One thing I feel like I really need to emphasize, and this applies to both of Momoshiki's jutsu, is the sheer scale of these techniques. For a regular ninjutsu, transforming into a giant golem with a full second activation is honestly kind of insane. It feels way bigger than what we usually get in the range class or any other class for that matter. Normally, jutsu like this, the big sweeping attacks meant to hit multiple enemies, suffer a lot depending on the map. Gaara's Sand Tsunami or Choji's Spiked Human Boulder are perfect examples. They are great on flat, simple stages, but on uneven maps or areas with lots of gaps, they become pretty unreliable. But this technique completely avoids that problem, and it's for one simple reason: you can walk on air. Whenever you're about to drop off a ledge, the game just generates rocks underneath your feet, letting you walk over the empty space. You can go down, you can go up, or even just start looking upward and it will let you start climbing into the air. It turns the jutsu into one of the best movement tools the range class has ever gotten. As the description mentions, you also get super armor both while charging and during the actual jutsu. And honestly, this technique probably comes the closest to feeling like an unstoppable force. Enemies can technically substitute out of it, but you're so fast that it barely matters. You just catch up instantly and keep running over them. That's also where the second activation shines for me. The best way to secure kills is to stomp enemies a few times and then finish them with the punch, since the punch actually deals pretty hard damage. Of course, the biggest counter to this jutsu is anything that breaks super armor. If someone hits you with one of these moves, you immediately drop out of the golem form and that pretty much shuts you down. I definitely think this jutsu works best in team modes. The more chaotic things are, the harder it is for enemies to track where you are or avoid getting run over. And overall, I think it's a pretty strong addition to the range class. It does feel like it could end up being a little bit overpowered, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see how the meta handles it. Momoshiki's second technique is Inukai Takuro Mikoto, a long-range ninjutsu where Momoshiki summons a large, dog-like beast that charges forward in a straight line. The attack travels a considerable distance and passes through both enemies and terrain, which allows you to use it safely from behind cover or from the back lines. Because of its size and straight line pathing, it can hit multiple targets when used in crowded or chaotic fights. Once the beast completes its charge, it doesn't just disappear. Instead, it transforms into a piece of terrain and stays on the field. This terrain interacts differently depending on who touches it. Allies, including the user, receive a movement speed buff when running over it, while enemies will trigger an explosion and take damage the moment they step onto it. The jutsu can also be aimed manually by holding the input, allowing you to guide the beast toward your intended path. This makes it useful for not only as a ranged attack but also as a supportive tool, especially in modes like Flag Battle, where you can place the terrain in a way that helps allies escape or slows down anyone chasing them. Just like the first jutsu, this is honestly super impressive for being a normal ninjutsu and not a secret technique. As the description says, you can either fire it off instantly or hold the button to aim it. Though for some reason the aiming is done with the left stick instead of the right, which feels pretty strange at first. It is something you can get used to, but it definitely threw me off in the beginning. When you activate the jutsu, the dog-like beast shoots out of the rock you create and charges in a straight line, damaging anything in its path. Once it finishes the attack, the beast actually remains on the field as terrain, letting you and your teammates use it like a bridge. If an enemy steps on it, it triggers an explosion a moment later, dealing damage and removing the terrain. From my testing, I personally had more success using the jutsu quickly without any aiming, but I can absolutely see situations where the manual aiming will be useful, especially in objective modes. The jutsu can be interrupted, but thankfully the activation animation is pretty fast, and if it gets cancelled, the cooldown doesn't reset. so it's really not that punishing. A lot of people might think the fact that it passes through terrain is overpowered, but honestly I think it's necessary. Without that property, this would be just another jutsu that completely falls apart on uneven maps. As purely a damage tool, it's solid but not top tier for range types. The hitbox seems just a little smaller than the actual visual of the beast, and there's no tracking whatsoever. If you want to land it consistently, your best bet is using it close to mid-range. It's fast enough to connect reliably at those distances. Damage-wise, it hits around somewhere between a regular fireball and majestic destroyer flame. So pretty good, especially for a jutsu that often clips multiple enemies at once. You can also chain it into your light attack combo since the activation is very quick. As a movement tool, the terrain it leaves behind is genuinely helpful, especially on maps with awkward elevation changes or places where extra footing helps a lot. The explosion part isn't exactly instant. When an enemy steps on it triggers a little animation, and after a few seconds the bridge explodes. Overall, this is a very cool technique. In my opinion, it's definitely much more balanced than the monkey jutsu while still being super unique and offering a lot of utility. Finally, Kibitsuhiko no Mikoto is Momoshiki's transformation type secret technique that revolves around consuming his spells to fire a massive long-range chakra orb. Once activated, Momoshiki charges up a giant projectile and launches it forward, and the orb travels through terrain, allowing it to hit opponents behind walls or at extreme distances. Because the attack covers such a large area and pierces through obstacles, it's designed to wipe out multiple enemies in a single shot if they're grouped together. After firing the orb, Momoshiki enters an enhanced state. During the transformation, he receives reduced healing and his substitution cooldown becomes longer, but in exchange his overall physical abilities are heavily boosted. This lets him fight more like an attack type, giving him improved close range capabilities for the remainder of the transformation. In this state, his ninja tool is also replaced with a special absorption tool, basically Kawaki's strange taste. Whenever an enemy uses a chakra based technique near him, this tool absorbs some of that chakra, slightly boosting his physical stats each time it happens. This creates a passive advantage against range types or anyone relying on frequent ninjutsu, letting Momoshiki grow stronger as the fight goes on. So the first part, the projectile, is pretty good. It's wide enough and fast enough to catch enemies off guard, making it hard for them to escape once it's fired. Personally, I still think Kitsasuke's or Boroshiki's second activations might be a bit better, but that mostly comes down to preference. One big advantage though that this projectile does have is that it travels straight through any terrain. You can hit people behind walls, around corners, basically anywhere. Now, where this ultimate really does start to stand out though is the transformation itself. One of the first things you'll notice is that the secret technique gauge doesn't show any timer at all. And well, that's because the ultimate quite literally has no duration. The only way it ends is if you die. But it doesn't stop there. As mentioned, you can absorb enemy attacks with your ninja tool, and each time you do that, you grow stronger. That means that theoretically, from the moment you activate his ultimate until the end of the match, you can just keep scaling more and more. Of course, there are downsides. You receive reduced healing and your substitution cooldown becomes longer. But on the flip side, your physical power goes way up and you become faster as well. The trade-offs heavily favor aggressive players. In my opinion, this ultimate is easily going to become the new meta for range types, especially in the hands of really skilled players. Having an ultimate that lets you continuously grow stronger is just incredibly powerful. And if you got a healer or two backing you up, you can basically turn into an unstoppable force that can wipe anyone in your way. And that's all of Momoshiki's jutsu. I have to say, he's certainly one of the most chaotic additions we've ever gotten in Shinobi Striker. All of his attacks are so incredibly noticeable whenever somebody uses them. During the recording for this video, a lot of people were obviously trying him out. And let me tell you, when playing in a lobby that has 4 or more Momoshikis in that game, it turns into an absolute mess. There's stone monkeys running around everywhere and huge wooden bridges all over the map. This will obviously become less of an issue once everyone tries him out, but it will be interesting seeing how much of a mess a single user can make. Alright, so overall, do I think Momoshiki is worth it? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. He has one amazing normal jutsu, one good normal jutsu, and a super useful ultimate that I think will become a staple in the meta. Plus, all of his techniques feel very unique. It's not something you can find in any other character in Shinobi Striker. So yeah, even if you're someone who likes to buy only DLC characters essential to the meta, I think you should still definitely get him. With that said, let me know in the comments what you think of Momoshiki and his techniques. And if you yourself are planning on getting him. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!